How many hints about the CrossFit Games can Adrian Bozman drop in a conversation about the last chance qualifiers? Let's have a look. Welcome back to the channel. So Adrian Bozman was recently on the CrossFit Games podcast with Chase Ingraham talking about the last chance qualifier workouts. However, he did drop a number of hints about what we might see at the CrossFit Games. Now, before you start saying that, there's not really much to these clues, do you remember this picture? Or should I say this picture? Yes, the CrossFit community loves to speculate on what's coming up. Dave Castro could have accidentally taken a picture of the inside of his pocket and we would have spent a week speculating as to what workout that meant we were going to see in the open. Now, I don't have the answers because, you know me, I'm more of a question guy, but no doubt you intelligent people watching this will be able to speculate and come up with something. Oh, and stick around to the end of the video because then you'll see the challenge that Adrian Bozman has thrown down for the entire CrossFit community. And of course, don't forget to like the video, share a comment, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. So let's dive in then to the first clip.
I'll tell you that, sneak peek at the games, am I aware of where the CrossFit Games athlete is strong and maybe less diligent today? Yes. And is that going to be something that athletes are going to have to contend with when they get to that stage of competition? Absolutely. And are there going to be some athletes that maybe have a little bit of a bruise to the old ego because of that at some point? Yes. And that's part of the games.
So here, Bozman mentions areas where athletes are strong and areas where they are less diligent. So that expression, less diligent, makes me think it's something people maybe did when they started CrossFit and are now neglecting. So what could that be? Well, it made me think of the recent shift we saw, for example, with wall walks. Wall walks tended to be a scaling option for people that couldn't do handstand push-ups in a lot of boxes around the world. But then we saw them show up in the open, then the games, and now the open again. And people have been incorporating them into the training over the last year because of us seeing them at the games. So they're not neglected anymore. But are there some other areas that are similar to what wall walks once were? Areas that athletes, once they kind of progressed beyond, started to neglect? And if so, what are they? Please feel free to share in the comments if you've got any ideas. And next we get a coach's tip.
But no, I think it's true though. And I would say this is a free coaching tip. if you stuck around for 20 minutes listening to Chase and I, here you go. But I would say that it's important for people that want to be games athletes, that want to coach games athletes, or even just the average person that wants to get fitter and is kind of following along with what their heroes are doing in the sport. Yeah, I think there are domains that we can look at as CrossFitters and say, hey, the margin between the best in the world in this domain and us as generalists is much closer than in others. And that should give you a clue as to where maybe you need to be expanding.
So the question here is, in what domains is someone like me closer to a games athlete than others? I can think of the ones where we're not close. It's much harder maybe to try and come up with some that we are close. But he talks about this margin between us and them. Now, keep that in mind when we come back to the challenge that he's thrown out later. Boz later hinted at some style of workout that we might see that could appear boring on paper, but wouldn't be in execution.
On the other end of that, I'm a staunch believer that there are certain tests that don't have to have a lot of fanfare around them, and they're always going to be spectacular because the athlete's performances in them is going to be so compelling. And, like a mile race is one of those things. The mile race is not compelling because you're concerned as to whether or not the athletes can finish the event. There's no question that they're all going to make the distance. That's a no-brainer. But who can do it in an absolutely inhuman time? That's what's compelling about it. And so I think when people look at certain things on paper, sometimes you have to reserve judgment because, maybe it isn't the thing that blows your doors off in the way that it's presented on paper. But when you see the athletes throw themselves at it, the performance is the real story. And in my opinion, that's a huge part of sport, right? Like that has to be it. And if you're not interested in that, maybe you're not really that interested in the sport.
So it sounds like we're going to see something that's super simple, but will allow the athletes to really demonstrate just how good they are. Now, what could that look like? We're being told here that maybe on paper it's going to look boring, but it's going to be really fun to watch. Once again, please feel free to speculate in the comments because I really have no idea. And then we get a spoiler alert for a certain type of test.
Spoiler alert, I won't give away any details, but I have there's a test planned at the games this year that I think is describing exactly what you said, where I'm like, if you are somebody who gets a really good score in this particular test, I think it's going to be pretty indicative of the way everything shakes out. So,
and the seed is planted.
I'll be curious when everything's revealed, if you can pick that one out. I'll be happy to pick your brain about that because I'm curious to see what you think.
So what is the one workout that you could program that would determine who would win the CrossFit Games? Because apparently that workout's going to show up. Now, I know these are very vague clues, but they are clues, and they'll probably end up being more satisfying than a J.J. Abrams mystery box. So at least we have a starting point for our speculation over the coming weeks. Now, I did mention that there's a challenge that Boz is throwing out for the community. So before we play that clip, can I just say that if you're enjoying this kind of video where I'm kind of trying to pull out some interesting points that I've picked up on from a much longer podcast, please let me know because then I'll keep doing them. And if you're really enjoying it and you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure you do because then you won't miss any future videos. So let's go back to Boz.
But there is one at the end there in the fourth and final test where everybody is capable of that, or maybe not everybody, of course, but there's a huge proportion of us, meaning the regular CrossFit enthusiasts, that can take that one on and get through it. And it's not going to, it'll be tough, but it's not going to just totally flatline you. And I think that's a lot of fun too, because it does highlight how big the gap is between the very, very best and the rest of us that just like to play along from home. So those of you that are listening that are fans, I highly recommend you guys dive in and give that fourth one a shot and see what you got, and then make some predictions to see how much faster the best are compared to us. Because it's always pretty cool to see like, all right, I had a good run at that. And then you look at what's possible and you go, oh my goodness, like this is just out of control how fit these people are.
So Boz reckons we could all have a go at workout 4 of the last chance qualifiers. So that's 2 rounds of 50 burpee box jump overs, 75 double unders, and 100 wall balls. But he also said that doing this would reveal just how big the gap is between your average person at the box and a games athlete. So now go back to that initial list where we were talking about these margins that were greater in some domains and smaller in others, and I guess we can cross these movements off the list. And there we have it. And again, I know it wasn't much, but it was definitely more clues than I was expecting to hear in a conversation about the last chance qualifiers. And on that note, if any of you are crazy enough to take on that 4th workout, let me know how it goes. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe, share it around, throw in an algorithm comment if you can as well. They're always appreciated. And I'll see you again in the next video.